Ugh, Yaesu, come on. So I was going to take you out and do some grounding on some hard lines today and go through a little bit more grounding stuff, but it started sprinkling rain this afternoon. First rain we've had in, I don't know, since like June, first part of June. So the rain's welcome, but kind of rained me out of what I was planning on for a video today. So I dug up some footage I took a couple months ago. It's on my cell phone, so it's not the greatest footage. It's of the FTM-100D. And some of the troubles I've had with these radios. And I don't have a lot of footage from it, but to kind of fill you in, I've got 3 of these things. And 2 of them, the PAs have went bad, and I've replaced both of those. Those little transistors, really common in radios. You can buy them from RF Parts in a lot of places. They're not super bad to change. You know, if you got a decent soldering station, you can do it. The worst part is you got to take the board completely out of the radio. And sometimes that SO239 connector where it's soldered onto the board can be a real bear to get out, since it's a natural heat sink right there. So you've got to have a decent sized soldering iron to get that one out. So besides the PA failures, 2 of them have also lost the internal speakers on them. Pretty easy fix. I've just plugged in an external speaker and away they went. But I ordered the new speakers, put them in, and yeah, they work, but I'm still just using the external speaker. Now the PA failure, I've had these radios for about a year. The one PA failure, I have no idea why the thing failed. The SWR on the antenna, it sweeps good, return loss looks good. Don't know what the deal is with that radio. The other one, the PA went bad right in the middle of winter. Now the antennas on the truck were a little iced up. You know, you get that kind of a rime ice buildup when you're going down the road. And they started forming some ice, and I was talking to my XYL with that radio that day, and boom, all of a sudden I lost. She said she couldn't hear me. I think it was just because the SWR changed just enough. Evidently those radios don't have good RF protection in them from high SWR, because it popped that transistor right now on it. Now I will say I've had that exact same problem. I think it was an FT-8800, the dual band radio that I had it, I don't know how many years ago. It did the exact same thing on me twice. Whenever that antenna would get a little iced up, boom, lose a PA in it. So I'm thinking something could probably be improved there. Now before I get too far into this, let me say, I don't have anything against Yaesu. I've had some of the radios I've really enjoyed, like the FT-100, the old little small form HF rig they had. That was one of my favorite little mobile HF rigs ever. Really enjoyed that little radio. It had flaws. I did lose a PA on one, but it was a pretty good little radio. So I'm not saying I'm a Yaesu hater. I've owned quite a few Yaesu radios. I just haven't had real great luck with them. And so, yeah, your mileage may vary. Don't hate me. Anyway, I replaced the PAs in those. You know, and like I said, I was going to kind of let this whole thing slide. I don't, in most radios, if I get some bad ones, I usually don't even try and mention it and just, you know, get rid of them. But I think these ones deserve a dishonorable mention. Now, backstory. I bought these radios. I like the form factor of them. They fit nice on top of a dash. And I started off really liking these little radios. I like the APRS feature. Now, it's kind of clunky to use, I think, how to get to the APRS feature in it. I wish they had a hot button you could just switch it back and forth from APRS to whatever mode you want to use, but unfortunately they don't. At least I never found it. And so that's kind of clunky. Overall, the radio, the functionality of it, I kind of like. The digital mode, you know, here lately, everything's, oh, digital, we got to be digital. Digital does all this cool stuff, and it does offer some cool features that you can't get with analog FM. You know, unit IDs, APRS, or not APRS, but GPS tracking, all that kind of cool stuff. But it has its drawbacks too, and one of them is, to me, the audio quality just isn't there. I don't care what brand you're talking about, whether it be the Fusion system, DMR, D-Star, P25, Next Edge, whatever. It all sounds extremely compressed, which it is. When you're talking about a digital signal on a two-way radio in these VHF, UHF bands, you're talking about a pretty narrow bandwidth they have to operate it in. So the way to pass audio digitally, when you've got that narrow spectrum to work with, is you compress it. Every time the wife and I use that digital mode, I always tell her, you sound inebriated, which she does. It takes so many of the highs out of her voice, it sounds kind of like she's slurring, and she's one of those people that always talk extremely clear. And on digital, I just don't like the sound quality. But besides that, these radios in particular have a flaw, and let me show you what I'm talking about. Now here we're just looking at the radio after I've put a new PA in it, just making sure it's got full output power and is on frequency, and looks like it is. And doing the same test with the UHF side, and it looks pretty good. A little more off frequency, but not super bad. And just testing the receiver sensitivity here on the UHF side, make sure that the antenna switch is still working. This particular radio, I did have to replace the antenna switch, or the TR switch, in it also, mainly due to my own mistake with the soldering iron. Got it a little warm, so just double checking that everything's working here correctly. And doing the same on the VHF side. Now here's where I feel the fatal flaw in this radio is, besides the PA, is when this radio is receiving a signal and you've got the tone decoder turned on, it's extremely hit and miss when it will work right and when you're in the FM mode. I've tried it with all kinds of different tones, and it just doesn't function correctly. It will start flashing blue like it thinks it's receiving a digital signal or something, and it just won't pass any audio. And it happens on different bands. Every frequency I've tried it on, I get the same result. This radio is extremely sensitive to PL or CTCSS levels. As you can see there, it's now flashing blue. It's receiving a signal the same level it was before, but now it doesn't think there's a valid tone there. Even though the tone is right, it's set about what a narrowband tone would be set at, it just won't work. And you can raise this tone up to 600 hertz of deviation. Doesn't make any difference at all. I tried every method I could with this radio, and it does the same thing all the time. And it's, like I said, extremely hit and miss. It's extremely frustrating to use. I don't know how many times I about pulled my hair out trying to talk with my wife. We communicate via radio on our way to work. She goes one way and I go the other way. And usually we communicate via radio on our way to work. And this thing has caused us so much frustration that, these radios to me are pretty much useless. And here, I was having such rotten luck trying to get into the radio. I was double checking the tone in the radio to make sure it was okay. And I also, on the service monitor, was varying the frequency of the tone, thinking, well, maybe the radio, old radios, I've had issues with the tone being off. But this, I varied it a few hertz each way. Didn't seem to make any difference. It would work sometimes, then it would just quit. And so, yeah, that was my luck with this radio, and all three of them are exactly the same. I've pulled two of them out and tested them. This one I just happened to have on the bench that day after replacing the PA in it, and the other one I pulled out exact same scenario. Yeah, I know you can just turn the PL tone off and use it that way. I just prefer to have PL tones on. I work in the commercial radio industry since, who knows, 70s, 80s. Tones have been kind of the standard in the industry. I like them on there. When you drive past gas stations and places that have lots of computers, you don't get the interference. I just like them, okay? And the dang radio should work with them. So there you have it. These little radios, I really want to like them, but I've had a hard time liking because they're on my bench about as much as I use them. And this problem where it drops so many calls when you're on the FM mode, I don't know if it thinks it's digital. I have no idea what it's doing. When you're trying to use the tone decode on the radio, let's face it, this setup is practically useless. And I really notice it on public service stuff. I've got the police and fire department programmed in our radios. I'd say about 40% of the time it drops those calls. You'll be listening, you'll catch the first syllable, then boom, it goes into this little flashing blue. It won't show up, and it'll stay that way for the next 10 transmissions back and forth, and all of a sudden it decides it's going to work again. And all three of these radios do it, and it's just irritating as all get out. So these radios, I hate to say it, I've relegated them strictly to APRS. I put them down on low power. They're only running APRS in our rigs now, and they work fine for that, and that's probably what they're going to stay doing as long as the PAs hold up. The next one that loses a PA, I'm changing it, and that radio's gone. So anyway, it wasn't the video I was expecting to do today, but hope you enjoyed it, and hope it didn't fuzz too many people up about their FTM-100s. And I know some guys who really have good luck with them. It's just not been my experience with these radios. I hate to say it, Yaesu in general, I've had some issues with in the past. Like I said, some guys have excellent luck with them. I just haven't. So anyway, thanks for watching and subscribing, and we'll catch you on the next video.